We're back to talk about everything happening in board game crowdfunding. It is Earth Day, and by no coincidence, we're going to be talking about Earth Abundance because their campaign is launching today. But there are some other campaigns to talk about as well. Ryan, what time is it?
It's time for crowd control. Conan the Barbarian is a character that I think everyone knows from the books and movies, but it was also the subject of a long-running Dark Horse comic on which this new board game is actually based.
The Adventures?
The Adventures of Conan. And this pulls from that comic series featuring a ton of artwork actually from those comics as well, which I think is an interesting take on Conan, not to do the movie or the book, but to focus on the graphic novel.
It's the last frontier.
It is the last frontier. But this is an adventure game, an asymmetric adventure game, where you're playing not just as Conan, but also maybe as some of his allies from the stories and also his foes from the stories. So this is not a cooperative adventure game. It's actually, it's fully competitive and asymmetric. Each of the characters, whether you're playing the main characters, the allies, or the foes, they all have different goals, different gameplay, and different dice, because the focus of this game is on dice rolling, and there are a ton of custom dice included with each one of the characters that kind of make up the dice pool for that particular character that you're going to be rolling as you move through the game. We haven't seen a lot out on this game yet, other than the designer diaries that you can find on BGG, but he talks about wanting to take this innovative dice system that they actually designed kind of on its own and then put Conan with it because they thought it was such a good fit for that property. So you're going to be kind of exploring through the land almost in a sandboxy adventure, trying to complete your asymmetric goals. And they do tease a little bit that while the game is not cooperative, you do have like Conan and his allies, and there might be some synergies there versus like some of the foes having some synergies, but ultimately only one person can complete their goal and win. So
kind
it's
of a co-opetition sort of
thing? Yeah, kind of. But even
sort
so,
of.
like the foes are very much only like working maybe with the other foes, and your heroes and allies maybe working together. It is an interesting take, I think, to avoid the symptom of just like everybody wants to play Conan and the other characters aren't fun. It looks like they've made every character very fleshed out and with new gameplay elements that might make you want to play one of the other characters just to get a different experience playing the game.
Do you have any idea how many Conan games have there been?
There's been a few. Monolith had one. There was the Conan RPG. There's been a few. There was, I think, a miniatures game at one point.
Definitely a ripe property for this over the years.
Yeah, wasn't there an MMO? Wasn't there Conan?
Oh, there's some video game.
Conan Exiles or something?
Conan Exiles MMO for sure.
It's a much-loved property. However, like I said, if you're expecting Schwarzenegger in this one, you're not going to get him. It's Dark Horse Comics, but still, very, very cool artwork.
We might have him as a guest on the next Crowd Control, though. Speaking of much beloved games, Keyforge is also a very loved game, and it's in its 8th iteration, if you will. This is the 8th sort of edition campaign that they're running for Keyforge. In this latest one, if you're not familiar with Keyforge, first of all, card game. Richard Garfield.
That's another one. We just talked about Mindbug last week.
Richard
This
Garfield's
guy does,
all over the place.
He does card games.
He does. He definitely does card games. He does more than card
Sure.
games, but he definitely does card games. The interesting hook about Keyforge, if you're not familiar, is that every single deck is unique. You don't have to do any deck building. You're basically just getting decks, and you're trying that deck out. And then maybe you go on to another deck, that sort of thing. But they are literally unique decks. And this new one offers 200 new cards, things like Sky Beasts. The Red Baron is said to return.
Oh, awesome.
What do these things mean? I have no idea. I don't play Keyforge that much. However, speaking of, we did play Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
I have a Keyforge deck right here. Am I going to give it away today here on Crowd Control? No, I'm sorry. But
that's one of a kind.
Well,
they're all one of a kind.
Yeah, they are all one of a kind, but this one is uniquely one of a kind because it's a Man versus Meeple deck called Snaky Young One of Man versus Meeple.
Interesting.
It's not referring to me.
We had several Keyforge decks made. I wish I could find all of them. Some of them I think we did give away. Some of them were just
I do think
passed out over time.
We opened some of them.
Some were opened and used. So I kind of wish we just kept all of them together as part of Man versus Meeple history, because that was a really cool thing they did for us.
Well, yeah,
making those custom decks.
And you yourself can get something along the same lines in the new campaign. One of the tiers, I think it's probably the one tier pledge that they're pushing the most. It allows you to actually get your name on the backs of the cards.
That's pretty cool. Like add the deck.
Maybe one of your decks. I'm not exactly the details, but it shows that you can put your name on the card. They have something that goes all the way up to, I think, 2,000, and all those pledges are gone. I think it was limited to 10. $2,000 got you the opportunity to have your likeness on a card as well. I don't know how it all works, if those are just for your decks, or if it's just one of the cards
that's a
now
cool idea
in the game. But they have a bunch of different tiers that you can pledge, ranging from like around 100 or less if you just want to get a few packs because you already have Keyforge. But if you want to get sort of the standard thing that comes with like
everything,
like a booster box and this and that, it's like I think around 165.
That's not bad for what you get in it.
But then it jumps up and jumps up. It's like up to 1,000 pretty quickly, 1,500, and then there's like that $2,000 pledge. Again, you're too late for that one.
Yeah, that one, and that one is always already running, but it's got some time. Then we want to talk about a couple that are launching this week. The first one I want to talk about is Core of Discovery. This is based on the comic series Manifest Destiny. If you're not familiar with this comic series, it's about Lewis and Clark and the Louisiana Purchase, except there's also monsters.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of definitely an alternate history sort of thing.
At least as far as we know, Lewis and Clark weren't out there hunting monsters. Minotaurs and such like that.
We hunted Minotaurs. We have a copy of the game. We actually got a chance to try it out.
We did. And so this is a kind of deduction-esque game.
It's very deduction.
Well, there's deduction, there's exploration, there's monster fighting, there's characters with unique abilities. There's a lot going on in this game, but it is all kind of based on scenarios. You're playing a scenario that has you finding a trail, which is very much like what Lewis and Clark were doing in this comic series. You're trying to find a trail to complete an objective. But the interesting thing is that you're finding different landmarks on this trail. You're finding different resources, and there's a deduction element. There's like a chart for each scenario that kind of tells you, well, if you find water, you know that there's a wood somewhere.
Be near this.
Or there might be mud, or there's only one piece of wood per column or row on this little grid. So you're trying to use these deduction elements to inform your decisions because you have a limited amount of time and a limited amount of resources to kind of get where you're trying to go in the scenario.
Yeah, the scenario we played, we had to knock off 3 of the Minotaurs. That was our goal. Yeah. But all the while, you have to kind of overcome the challenges of each day. And each day has these 3 challenge cards, so you have to fulfill those too. And like Ryan said, you're mostly, at least from our experience, collecting these resources, which is where the deduction comes into play because you're trying to determine, okay, we need some water, and water is supposed to be next to, wood. In this scenario, well, we found a wood, so one of these 3 must be water, that sort of thing. Plus, there are character abilities. You can play as Lewis Clark, a lot of the other characters from history and in that comic that give you some player powers that let you sort of maximize those things and efficiently make your way through the game.
Yeah, it's an interesting deduction puzzle, I think, where
deduction, for sure.
Like solving the deduction puzzle is not necessarily the main goal. That's just how you inform getting to the goal. So 100%. You need to kind of do both of those things. And this is from the same company that brought us Mind Management, which was another interesting style deduction game. Not that that's all they do, but I think that they've kind of got a good handle on what that looks like in a game.
For sure. The last one we want to talk about, this is the big one, I think.
I think I could say that.
I imagine this campaign will do really well.
It'll be one of the biggest of the year, probably.
It is Earth Abundance. If you haven't seen it, we're going to have a round 1, if it's not already on the channel, very soon, where Emily and I actually play far more than round 1. We played quite a ways into the game.
In fact, you played 6 games straight, I heard.
We did not play 6 games straight, but we did play enough. Who won? You'll have to watch and find out. In our warm-up game, I can tell you it was unexpected, but I won.
Ooh.
Did that happen again in the other game? Enough about selling our round 1 on the game. But the game itself, it's the expansion to Earth. If you haven't played Earth, it's this tableau building, all about nature. You're putting flora into your tableau, your ecosystem, if you will. All sorts of different scoring opportunities. This game plays really fast, plays even faster now because what Abundance does through a collection of different new mechanisms is really push things forward. You're going to get an abundance of things.
Oh.
We found that you're going to be able to, you can more flexibly use your sprouts. You don't have to have places to store them. You can put excess on your player board. And that means that you can use your sprouts as more of a currency because you can change sprouts into soil and then you can use soil to plant. So I found in the games that we played, I had a ridiculous amount of soil. So like whenever planting came around, I was like, I could plant anything. Now, the game is still challenging and you have to get the right cards out and use, build the right kind of engine to make it happen. But it plays really quickly. It also has higher player count now. And they promise that a lot of those mechanisms are even meant to allow that game to go faster.
Sure. Well,
I will caveat that by saying it depends on who you're playing with.
I was going to say, and it depends on if it's your first game.
It depends on who you're playing with, if it's your first game. And then the last thing I want to mention, and this is always a big thing with a game like this, when you have a game that has a giant
this
stack
is what I was
going
going to say.
They have this new currency called seeds, and you can use the seeds for a number of different things. But one of the things is, on your turn, you can just discard a seed, and then you can just dig down through the deck after naming a kind of card you're looking for. So if you're looking for another terrain card, which is one of the scoring cards for your tableau, or you're looking for another card that you need to achieve one of the scoring cards, you can just name it and flip, flip, flip. The first one you find, you take. That's fantastic for a game
That
like
is
this.
a huge deal for somebody like me,
Yeah.
who I know I play Earth probably a little bit differently. You know, there's different camps the way that we've talked about this on the channel. I am very much a look at my goals, and I will try to complete those goals come hell or high water. And in original Earth, it can be a little frustrating for a gamer like me because the game wants you to say, no, don't even. You're not drawing the cards.
I'm not getting the one I need.
Right. You can't. And you got to be like, okay, I'm not getting the one I need. Just don't even worry about that. But I'm like, no, I need that one. So now it gives players like me a chance to still get that, even though it's not as same as having you're not just finding the perfect card, but at least it does help you get what you're missing.
It's a really
I like
cool
that.
new mechanic in a game full of great mechanics already, but it does allow you not only to do that, and not just for gamers like you, but you could find yourself towards the end of the game if you go, oh man, someone's going to end it real soon and I need that thing.
Yeah, I'm just
You
one
can do
short.
that Hail Mary seed. Oh, perfect. Boom. And plant it on your next planting or whoever might plant. So anyway, that is Earth Abundance. Like I said, we are going to have a playthrough or some gameplay up on the channel as well, so do check that out.
Yeah, we'll probably be talking about this one quite a bit. And
If
Earth was one
Emily's
of our
on the
big
channel,
games.
she's going to be talking about it. She loves it. All of us like the game quite a bit. But that is it for this week's Crowd Control. If you have any questions at all about the campaigns we talked about, or if there's campaigns that you've heard about that you say, hey, why haven't you guys talked about this campaign? Let us know in the comments below. We're always happy to learn about these campaigns because it takes some research to figure out what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, there's always a lot. And there's always that surprise Tuesday where you're like, oh, that's launching this week? So,
exactly.
It happens.
You just never know. Until next time, though, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.